Global happenings today. We communicate, we analyze global news. Stay tuned.
Hello, beautiful people. Welcome back to Global Happenings Today YouTube channel. Many thanks for keeping faith with us. And the likes of Peter Obi's supporters and, of course, Atiku Abubakar's supporters. Atiku Abubakar are not letting matters lie low. In fact, they are raising alarm over the fact that they are heading to Supreme Court. But then again, the process again has begun. The delaying tactics is already getting to the neck of PDP and Atiku. And Obedient already screaming. And you're going to find out what it is they're actually screaming and shouting for, because the truth is they have just 14 days to do the needful, or else they forfeit the whole race of going to Supreme Court. But before we continue this newspaper, kindly subscribe to our channel by clicking on the red subscribe button beside it to receive a notification icon. Please go ahead, click on it to get notified as soon as we update our channel on YouTube. Where the People's Democratic Party (PDP) presidential candidate Atiku Abubakar has accused the Presidential Election Petition Court (PEPC) of undermining its quest for justice by delaying the release of the certified true copy (CTCs) of its judgment. Now, the report has it that Frank Shaibu, the Special Assistant on Public Communications to the former Vice President, said in a statement on Friday that the PEPC has not released CTCs, that certified true copies of the judgment, 3 days after it was delivered. Now, Shaibu said the delay was frustrating Atiku's lawyers, who have just 14 days to file an appeal to the Supreme Court. Same thing applies with Peter Obi's lawyers as well. Now, he said the PEPC had made very heavy weather at the delivery of his judgment on Wednesday that parties need to adhere strictly to the time schedule set by the court. Now, the PEPC is not oblivious that 3 precious days of the 14-day limit for parties to file their processes at the highest court have been wasted by the appeal court, Shaibu said. Now, he said the PEPC had struck out the testimonies of some of the Atiku's witnesses during the litigation of the court of first instance because their statements on oath were filed out of time. And now, from all intent and purposes, the same court want to have Atiku and PDP's appeal to the Supreme Court disqualified by the reason of time deadline, Shaibu said. Now, does the PEPC not understand that lawyers representing Atiku PDP need to digest the judgment as contained in CTC, which represents the authentic pronouncements made in court on Wednesday, in order to formulate its case for filing? Shaibu queried. Now, let's read the press release info. Please find below a press statement and attach copies of letters to the PEPC requesting for copies of his judgment in the petition against the declaration of Bola Ahmed Tinubu as president. The PEPC out to undermine Atiku and Nigerians' quest for justice. Not releasing copies of judgment to Atiku PDP is anti-democratic. Now, 3 days after delivering its judgment on the petition by Atiku Abubakar and the People's Democratic Party challenging the outcome of the February 25th presidential election, the Court of Appeal has yet to provide lawyers to Atiku and PDP certified true copies of their judgment. Same thing is actually happening with the Obedient, which is the Labour Party. Now, this is coming as Atiku and his lawyers have just 14 days to file the appeal to Supreme Court on the judgment. Now, Special Assistant to Atiku on Public Communications, Frank Shaibu, has, however, remarked that by not making available to Atiku Abubakar, presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party (PDP), the certified true copies of the judgment of Wednesday for its filings at the Supreme Court, the Presidential Election Petition Court is undermining Atiku's and Nigerians' quest for justice. Now, Shaibu made this assertion in a press statement on Friday while expressing the frustration of Atiku and the PDP in progressing with the filing of its appeal at the Supreme Court. Now, Shaibu reminded the PEPC that it had made heavy weather at the delivery of its judgment on Wednesday that parties need to adhere strictly to the time schedule set by the court. He noted that the PEPC is not oblivious that 3 precious days of the 14-day limit for parties to file their processes at the highest court have been wasted by the appeal court. We wish to remind the PEPC that it struck out the testimonies of some of the witnesses of Atiku during the litigation at the court of first instance because their statements on oath were filed out of time. And now, from all intents and purposes, the same court wants to have Atiku and PDP's appeal to the Supreme Court disqualified by the reason of time deadline. Does PEPC not understand that lawyers representing Atiku PDP need to digest the judgment as contained in CTC, which represent the authentic pronouncement made in the court on Wednesday in order to formulate his own filing, Shaibu queried. He said further that there can be no justification for the PEPC not making available the certified true copy of its so-called judgment for Atiku to continue with his quest on behalf of over 200 million Nigerians for substantial justice as opposed to the judgment rendered by the PEPC. It is curious that the same PEPC that claimed that the judgment was ready as at the time it was delivered on Wednesday is still grappling with typos and errors according to available information. Why did the PEPC not wait till next week to deliver the judgment as it would still have met the legal deadline instead of rushing to render a judgment which test is still undergoing panel beating? I laugh in Swahili. Now, it is anti-democratic of the court to still already act at the last count 3 precious days after the 14 days limit for Atiku to file his processes at the Supreme Court. The lost time would never be recovered, he said, and this was signed by Frank Shaibu, Special Assistant to Atiku Abubakar on Public Communication, on the 8th of September 2023. And of course, we're going to, as we have already seen some of the signatures of Chief Chris Uche, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, the lead counsel for the petitioner, also writing quite a lot. While we are talking, you get to see some of the letters they wrote, and this is really. And if you go on social media right now, Obedient are screaming to high heavens. Same thing is actually meted against them as well, where they are screaming that 3 days going to 4 days going now, and nothing is going on. And honestly speaking, if you had followed our channel, you remember that PEPC during the procession when it all began, the same thing happened. They kept out shouting, "Ine, can we get to see the beavers?" And they said, "Okay, the back end this, the back end that." That was one of the reasons that made the lawyers, legal team of Peter Obi now to look a way around getting a petition that is a bit watertight, so that they can walk around that CTC and still get that thing within the time frame. And when they now did that, a lot of things they now wanted to inculcate. The same thing that has happened to Atiku Abubakar. They said, sorry, it's not within the time frame, and hence it won't fly. Okay, so you could see the technicality playing out. It's not like these guys are not good. These guys are super sound. Okay, but this technicality of which on a fine day, if it was another umpire, they could easily have, gotten the necessary, injunction. But this is actually the judiciary now. So where do you get injunction from? And at 3 days, that stuff they read, that judgment, it took more than 8 hours of reading. So if reading alone is taking 8 hours to imagine reading, digesting, bisecting, finding the reason why they rejected, expunge some, and finding which one you're going to include, and knowing which one did not fly, which one you can add, and you can't even add, really. You can actually walk around what they have expunged. It's really a dicey one. But let's meet in our conversation wants to take. Peter Obi is also going through the same thing. Let's hope that this is sorted out before at the earliest.